Where's the money, Zelensky? We want that money, Zelensky. NATO says you're good for it.
Good morning. I'm Tabitha Hassell with Tabs on Tap. Happy Monday morning. Is there a such thing as a happy Monday morning? Maybe, maybe not. Hopefully, you guys all had a fantastic weekend. Hopefully, you had lots of fun. We thankfully had a beautiful day yesterday and the snow melted. I think that was ever going to happen. Good morning, Kim. Good morning, Allison. Lots to talk about today, as you saw in my opening video. Donald Trump trying to flush the money out of Zelensky, and that's $350 billion he's trying to flush out of the guy. We'll never see a penny of that money back now, will we? Lots and lots and lots to talk about today. Good morning, Dottie. Yes, just another manic Monday. I wish I could play music. I'd be playing some good little clips, but when you play music, they do away with the show for the day. I know there's probably a way around that, but I don't know what it is. Because every time I play a clip with music, they ban me in like numerous countries and say I don't get paid, of course, or any monetization for this show on any platform. But they say, oh, they'll take away your monetization and pay it to whoever owns the copyrights to that music. Like, well, good luck, because I don't make any money. Allison says, Cash Patel and Dan Bongino, what a dream team. And we will certainly get to that at some point. But yes, absolutely so. Lots and lots and lots to talk about today. As a matter of fact, so much. I don't know if I can pack it into one show, but I'm going to, lots of little tidbits of information we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the victory in Germany. Not the victory I was hoping for, but a victory nonetheless. And wokeness is ending all across Europe, and it's going to really break, I think, apart the European Union. I really do. And we've talked about that before. We're going to continue to talk about it until it happens, which is probably going to be sooner rather than later. As Allison mentioned, Dan Bongino, we're going to be talking about his appointment into the FBI. And Cash Patel, we're really hoping. Remember Anthony Weiner, and remember his laptop. We're going to talk about that. That story is being rehashed because you know what? We never really did find out what was on that laptop. We have a good idea. It was hinted to, but will we see more discovery with that laptop? Trump didn't do it in his last term. So we'll see what happens in this term. Good morning, Linda. We're going to get into that. That's a pretty big story, I think, that will be coming up in the near future. We're going to talk a little bit about Elon Musk. How can we not? Elon in the news, and we're talking about the Doge dividend. I'm going to jump into that for a minute because right now there was a suggestion made to Elon Musk by a person online, someone that I don't believe was known to him, and people have kind of run with it. And at first I thought, well, that sounds like a good plan until I found out exactly what that plan entails, and I'm not in favor of it. I'm in favor of Americans getting money, but I want all Americans to receive a payment, not just some Americans. So we're going to talk about that. Of course, we're going to have to jump into this deal with Ukraine, Donald Trump trying to make peace, he's really trying to, toe the line between Russia and Europe and trying to make a deal for what little minerals, of course, Ukraine has left, with, of course, Russia holding the larger piece of that, and also trying to make a peace deal with Russia. So we're definitely going to talk about that. We have no choice because it is going to be one of the big news stories we're going to be seeing all around the world. Good morning, Karen. We'll jump into that. Warren Buffett has some words of wisdom to the United States government after he paid the largest tax bill ever, $26.8 billion in taxes from Berkshire Hathaway to the United States government. Holy cow, that's a lot of money. We're going to talk about the DHS requesting data from the IRS. Lots of things to get into. We'll kind of reach them as we go. Lots and lots and lots and lots of things going on. Tom Cruise, got a little video to play from him. Was he right all along? And, I got to be careful sometimes what I say. As some of you know, I own a security company and I've done personal security for Tom Cruise, one-on-one. And he's a super nice guy, not what most people tend to say that he is. So we'll get to that when we get to it. Lots and lots and lots to talk about today. It's like, where do we even start? Pam Bondi suing the state of Illinois, suing the state of New York for obviously being sanctuary cities, not listening to Donald Trump. I moved to Illinois voluntarily. People say, why? Did they force you to? No one forced me to move to Illinois. And I've said it before, Illinois, believe it or not, the reason why I chose to move to Illinois, and it's not as far-fetched for me as some people, because I'm not a native Missourian. I'm actually an Illinoisan, and I grew up in the Chicago area. And then my parents moved to the St. Louis area when I was 16. So, my heart is still much of it in the area of Chicago. And I know some of you might be like, "Oh, Chicago." I lived in the suburbs of Chicago. But, over here, believe it or not, in this area of central Illinois, central, I guess would be considered central southern Illinois, people here are very, very, very conservative. This is Trump country for sure. Most of Illinois is Trump country. Most of Illinois is conservative. And, unlike St. Louis County, unlike even St. Charles County, remember, people want to say, oh, St. Charles County is so conservative, but you guys know that it's not. And so I had, lived in West County. That's where my parents moved. I pretty much lived there most of my Missouri years. But then at one point I lived in the city for a little bit. At one point I moved out to St. Charles County. And I'll tell you, I was kind of surprised. I felt like I was on an island because most of the people in my neighborhood out in Wing Haven were certainly not conservatives, and they were certainly not Donald Trump supporters. And it was really crazy, to learn what I thought St. Charles County would be very conservative actually was not. And I feel like I can't keep going west. I'll end up going too far west, and then I'll be even further away from what I feel is my original home. And so I decided to come back the Illinois way. And I'll tell you, I think that eventually the state of Illinois is going to become Republican. It will be red. And by Republican, I mean us new Republicans, not the old ones. I think things are changing. And boy, Missouri, for you, the guys living in Missouri, you better get a hold of things very quickly. You better make sure the right people are in place, because I see Missouri actually going blue. As crazy as that sounds, it is spreading like wildfire through. Every time I moved further west, the liberalism and the wokeness followed me. And I know a lot of you are very involved in the Wentzville School District and some of these other school districts in St. Charles County. So I know you know exactly what I mean. The liberalism is spreading. And Allison says Franklin County is conservative in Trump country. Yes, it is. And I love Franklin County. I do. And good morning, Annette. And so I'm glad to hear that Pam Bondi, of course, our new Attorney General, is suing the state of Illinois and the state of New York. And we're going to listen to a little clip here. I don't know what you guys think about Pam Bondi, but I really didn't know much about her until she received that nomination in the appointment. And I really do like her. And I'm glad now to become more familiar with her. And I've always loved, what with DeSantis. I don't like DeSantis over Trump, but I always liked what DeSantis did with Florida. Now, I hope he stays in Florida. I do not want him to be our president, but I do love what he's doing in Florida. I think he's doing a fantastic job there. I think Pam Bondi did a fantastic job there. And we're going to look at a little clip from Pam Bondi, because this lady means business. And I can't wait to see where she goes from here. This is all just a starting point. I mean, we're barely 30 days in to this Trump presidency. And this is everything you see right now. It's just a starting point. We've got a long, long way to go. So
sanctuary cities, protecting Americans. I sued the state of Illinois. I sued the governor. And I said, if you don't stop, you're next. New York kept going. They were belligerent, sued New York, sued the governor. Not going to stop. So, you're going to be next if you're not watching what we're doing, and we will be successful, and we will make America.
Love, love, love Pam Bondi. Jay says, get away from Chicago and the other large metro areas in Illinois. is red. It absolutely is, Jay. If you looked at a map, it would. And if anybody remembers back during COVID times, when everyone was shutting down, guess what? A good portion of Illinois did not shut down. The police chiefs refused to honor the lockdown request. They just said, nah, we're just going to let the people do what they want to do. And Missouri was a lot the same too, because back at that time, my family had a cabin out in Ironton, Missouri. And, here in the St. Louis area, of course, back then I was living in the Wing Haven area. And back then in everything was locked down. You couldn't really go anywhere. I moved during that time period of COVID from Clayton area over to the Wing Haven area out in St. Charles County because I wanted to escape St. Louis County. But then I went over to St. Charles. I'm like, well, it's not really that much better. And things never really did recover, quite honestly. Everything started closing early. People stopped going out. I guess that's what they referred to as the new normal, which is still the new normal, unfortunately. But back during that time, you could go out into other parts of Missouri and it was like nothing was going on. We would go out to Farmington, out to Ironton, and life was just moving along. People were still going to the store. Some people wore masks, some people didn't. Everybody just lived their lives like any ordinary day. It was just all the hype and, of the wokeness and the liberalism that had took hold in St. Louis City and St. Louis County and to some degree St. Charles County. And so Missouri, a lot of Missouri is still red, still conservative, but they're losing that traction every single day as liberalism spreads and as those people continue to move from St. Louis City and from St. Louis County, and they spread out and fan out across Missouri. They're bringing their wokeness and their liberalism with them. And that's something we've really got to pay extra special attention to. And good morning, Rob. Good morning, Mary. So I'm glad to see a lot of everything. There's so much going on with the Trump administration. There were so many different news stories. You should see. I know I don't even normally take notes, or if I do, I just write down a word just to remind me to talk about a certain topic. I've got like 4 pages of things here to talk about because there is so much going on. It just never ends. It absolutely never ends. Here in a few minutes, we're going to talk about abolishing the IRS. And is the IRS legal? I have said for a long time, back when I was on Real Talk, and we would have St. Charles County Rep. Why can't I remember his name? I'm losing my mind. West on with me. And I love that guy, by the way. And he would come on and we would talk about the IRS. And at the time, we're like, people need to stand up. And people need to say, hey, I'm not paying my taxes this year. When you come after me and start sending me letters and start, telling me I have to pay my taxes, then I will. But let's all stand up at the same time and refuse to pay our taxes. And Richard West, I can't believe that my brain must be frazzled today on a Monday because I absolutely love the guy. And so, and everybody was like, oh, you can't do that. You can't do that. If you don't pay your taxes, you're going to go to prison, you're going to go to jail. All these things are going to happen to you. I'm like, that's not true. That is absolutely not true. If you don't pay your taxes this season, they give you a timeline. They'll work out payment agreements with you. Yeah, they may issue you a fine, but and is that fine even legal, quite honestly? And people are so scared of the IRS, absolutely terrified of the IRS. Allison says the FBI is now reopening the investigation on Ilhan Omar. Yes. And good morning, Sherry. Good morning, Karen. And so therefore, back to the IRS, is anything they're even doing legal? I'm going to say no. I'm going to say it's government overreach. Taxes are, in my opinion, theft. And we've always believed that. And now we see that, guess what? All of this money that people paid into taxes, what happened to it? Lost, stolen, given away to people who don't deserve it. I was just reading how through one of these audits, they audited when they were auditing the Social Security Administration, they realized that payments were going to Ukrainian refugees who fled the war in Ukraine and came here to the United States. And under Biden, we issued them a Social Security number. These people had never paid in to the Social Security account here in this country, never. But they come here and we issue them a social security number and we start giving them social security payments. Now, how is that? Why should people who have never lived here, who came here, who fled, a terrible situation, certainly, but they fled and came here to this country and we're paying them social security? Americans have to fight for social security. We've been told social security is running out by the time you get X amount of age. You're not going to have any social security anymore. And they want to, extend the retirement age to save on the social security account so that people can actually receive social security. People are making life defying decisions to try to survive on social security, but we're paying social security to people who have never lived here. I mean, in bureaucrats, government workers getting wealthy on American tax dollars. And it's not just Congress. It is absolutely not just Congress. It is all types of people. When Joe Biden entered office, there were about 70,000 government employees, civil servants, who were millionaires. These are people who are civil servants who've worked in the civil service for probably their lifetimes, but became millionaires. And now, after Joe Biden, guess what? That number is nearly 160,000. It's like 155,000 and something people, civil servants, people who work in civil service, who have become millionaires at, guess what? At your money. And I only thing I can think of is that people within these different branches have figured out how to steal. They realize that there's no one watching, there's no one looking, there's no one looking at the books, there's no one holding them accountable. So therefore, they were writing themselves some pretty hefty checks. They were paying friends and family who ran nonprofits or NGOs, non-government entities. They were paying them money. And in the end, that money came from you, and they robbed us. And of course, if you don't go and you don't pay your taxes, well, guess what? They come after you. And it's kind of funny because we talk about Facebook censorship. And I know you guys are watching on Facebook. I'm going to admonish you again to say go to X and watch the show, because I'll tell you what, I got censored again this weekend, because I posted this meme about the IRS and how Joe Biden, he tasked, 79,000 IRS agents to come after you to search your bank accounts every time you made a $600 deposit. What was that money for? My gosh, you made $600. What did you do to get that $600? And how now, obviously the opposite's happening. We're going after, they came after us, the people. Now we are going after them, the government. And Facebook not only removed my post, but they gave me another little zing to take me lower in the news feed. And that's exactly what they do. Good morning, Joe Lynette. And let's see here. And I don't know who you guys are talking about, but somebody said 2 years ago her net worth was $40,000. She's now worth $10 million. It has all these mansions. So Stacey Abrams, maybe, because I know they found out they were going to give her $2 billion. Jay, Social Security has been plundered by the bureaucrats. That's why it's struggling. It should have been privatized because it would have a better return. And Annette, there is a nonprofit at WashU funded by USAID. Not anymore. Was it a good nonprofit or a bad one? Some of them are good. Some of them are bad. I don't know. And Linda says, I switched to X immediately. Thank you for that, Linda, because we have to support the folks who support us. Good morning, Joe Fry. Oh, Allison says Jasmine Crockett. And sorry about that. Thank you. I missed that comment. So we're going to talk a little bit about this IRS. I want to show this video to you. It's a little bit longer than the videos I normally play. Not by too much, though, but we're going to talk about that. Then we're going to talk about P. Diddy, some of the other stuff that's going on. And where is the video? I hope I loaded it up, because if I didn't, then I'm going to have to go back and find it. All right, let me see. I don't know if I'll be able to find it. Darn it.
Why do you think you've been able to get away with not paying or
go.
filing your income taxes for so long?
Well, first of all, I've not gotten away with anything. I'm not hiding from anyone. I'm simply asking the IRS to show me the laws that apparently require me to do these things, and they are suspiciously reticent to answer questions from me. And of course, there are millions of other people many other organizations who have attempted to get answers. They act very suspiciously when asked to simply sit down at the table with the American people and discuss what their obligations are. Rather than pulling up a chair, they pull out a club.
So what do you think? I think that we need to do more to abolish the IRS. I think it's going to happen. I don't think that it's going to be a situation where there are no taxes that we pay, but I think it's going to be a situation where the IRS is no more. It's going to be leveled. We're going to come up with a new plan, a new department, and we're going to know where every single penny goes. And not only are we going to know where every single penny goes, you're going to be able to log into a website and you're going to see where every penny has gone. And we, the American people, we're going to be the police of the Social Security Administration. We're going to see where they're spending our money. We're going to be the police of the government, of every branch of the government. It's going to be transparency unlike we've ever seen before. Now, clearly, if Colonel Joe Adams was listening, he would say, well, there are some things we just shouldn't know. And that's also true. There is money that's going to be spent by the government for projects and CIA initiatives that we as Americans really shouldn't know about, shouldn't talk about, classified information, and because that can't change. We still have to protect our national security, and there's some things that Americans just can't know. But your tax dollars, you need to know where your money is going. Don't you feel like you have that right? And then Glenn says a flat tax. I've heard there could be a flat tax of 14% across the board. We'll see if that happens. Thank you, Lori, for switching to X. You get a reminder on Facebook and just click it out of habit. Yeah, I wish that X did that type of reminder too, and I don't know how to fix that. Karen says, I read Elon is possibly buying ABC. I don't know. I haven't heard that, Karen, but maybe. There's so many rumors about Elon going around right now that it's hard to sift through what's true and what's not true. I kind of wait to see what comes out of his mouth directly before I know exactly what is happening. And I know when we get to it later, there was a lie that he has exposed that did not happen. He didn't say it. We'll get to that when we get to that topic. But yeah, I don't know if he's buying ABC or not, but I know that Elon is certainly at the center of a lot of the transparency, and he wants us to know what's going on. They're telling us, flat out telling us everything they're uncovering. And Democrats, they don't believe it. They say, oh, it's lies. That's been debunked. That's not actually happening. Elon Musk is so full of it. Oh, he's such a bad guy. It's just billionaires making more billionaires. But I will tell you one thing. When we talk about this Doge dividend and how it came up with the name Doge dividend was that there was a guy, and we on this show talked about it far sooner than this guy did, as did a lot of people, probably on a lot of other shows, as did a lot of Americans already have it in their head before this guy came up with a plan. But there was a CEO of like an investment firm that had posted something on X. Elon Musk had caught his attention. This guy, wrote up this plan and gave it to Elon Musk to give and present to Donald Trump. And it's one of the plans they've been kind of kicking around, whereas they take 20% of the Doge savings, put it back and reinvest it into the government. 20% goes back to the people, which would look like a $5,000 check to Americans. Well, the more I've dug into this process and I saw the documents that this guy wrote up, I don't like this guy's plan. I do think the money goes back to the people, but not in the way this guy proposes. So this guy proposes that only taxpayers get the money back. So you have to be a taxpayer. And some of you are probably saying, well, that's how it should be because we paid the taxes in that got stolen. So therefore that money should come back to us. But the reason why I disagree with that is I think that every American should get money back. If that means we get less than $5,000, I'm fine with that. I think every American, it doesn't matter whether you've ever paid a dime of tax, I think should get some money back. And the reason why I feel that way is because these programs, all of the money that we paid into tax dollars was supposed to go to, let's say, build wells or something for people. We knew some of our money was going to some foreign aid. We were told that our money was probably going to help less fortunate people in our own country, and it didn't. And so to me, those people also lost out. I don't mind taxpayers putting a little bit of money towards the less fortunate in our country, towards the veterans, towards people who are homeless, towards, mental illness. There are some things I think that we all take a tiny bit of responsibility for monetarily. and that we put in some tax dollars for that. But those people never got those tax dollars. They never received any of the benefits we all thought they were probably getting. And I think all of us wish there were better programs out there for the people in our country who are really hurting. And I think that those people, leaving those people out of the equation and telling them they will not get any part of this money back, I think is just wrong. So I think we need to come up with a better plan so that these people do get something. And Glenn says only taxpayers should be allowed to vote. Got to be careful with that one, Glenn. Got to be careful because there's a lot of people out there right now who are taxpayers who are not United States citizens. There's a lot of them actually. One of the audits into the IRS department revealed that the IRS was giving out ITIN numbers to millions of people. They issued millions of ITIN numbers, which is a taxpayer identification number that goes out to individuals, people who are not United States citizens. And if you guys remember, right before the election, I played a video here where there was an undercover person, I can't remember which group, maybe Judicial Watch or something, where he went to this office in New York City and he walked in and he was going to register to vote. And they said, "Oh, I'm sorry. If you're not legal, you can't vote. You can't register to vote. But please go across the street and they'll issue you an ITIN number, then come on back over." And so he could go over, they would issue him an ITIN number, and then he would come back over and he could vote. And that happened with millions of people. So now we have millions of people who potentially voted in the last, who knows how many elections, in which the Democrat government gave them, the regime gave them ITIN numbers. So not everyone, unfortunately, not everyone who is getting a taxpayer number, tax ID number, is necessarily a taxpayer or not necessarily a U.S. citizen. So I hope they do the deep dive and get into the IRS files a little bit further. And more than anything, I want to see accountability. We already knew that the IRS was giving these ITIN numbers to illegals so that they could vote. We already knew that was happening. But now where's the accountability? Now we can prove it, but where's the accountability? We all watched 2,000 Mules. We all knew it was happening. Now we have proof, but where's the accountability? Who's going to be held responsible? Who's going to go to prison over their actions? And I hope someone does. Joe says Red Cross not only involved in human trafficking, but has been a money laundering operation. You're so correct. Red Cross, one of those NGOs that has received an awful lot of money, a lot of money. And Allison, the people not paying taxes are already being supported by the taxpayer already. Well, we thought they were, Allison. We thought they were being supported by the taxpayer, but are they? Yes, they're receiving maybe state benefits, food stamps, and that type of thing. And Donald Trump is going to create more regulation. He's going to get to the bottom of why so many people are receiving government assistance, and should they really be receiving government assistance. So there are going to be some crackdowns there. They're kind of floating around the idea of people who receive food assistance cannot buy junk food, or they can't buy sugary food, or the first thing I heard on the chopping block is going to be sodas or sugary drinks, that they may ban that from SNAP benefits. Are they called SNAP benefits in every state? I don't really know, but that's something that they're going to be discussing. And, there was a whole list of NGOs that have received so much money. I saved the list for another day, but I don't know where it is now. But there were so many different groups who were receiving money, from the taxpayers. And it's just a bunch of fraud. It really is. It's just a bunch of fraud. And we all knew it was happening. I just want to see the arrest being made. Joe says many of the illegals get ITIN numbers, but the majority of their income is cash. That's also very true, Joe. There's probably a very few that pay into taxes thinking if they pay taxes, then they at least maybe won't get deported, but I think that's the few. I think most of the time when people are paid, they send a lot of their money back to their home country, wherever that might be. And then, they live on the rest here, and live very cheaply. You hear these stories where you have people who are here in our country illegally and they're living, 20 people to a house, and, their bills equate to less than $100 a month, and all the money they make goes back to their family in their originating country. It's not being spent here in our economy. So therefore, their employer, whoever their employer might be, is giving them, money, whether it's cash or not, and then they're taking that money, very minimally spending it here in our country, but it's all going out of the country, and that's a real problem. I think it'd be less of a problem if they did spend all of their money here, but they're just not. Jay says, who cares what they spend it on? I think it's up to them on what type of food they buy. Punishment for needing help is wrong. Jay, I'm kind of with you on that. I'm fine with having more oversight and making sure people really are on a program because they need to be on a program, that they're not people who are capable of working that just aren't working. But once you're capable of being on the program and you meet that eligibility, I don't think the government should tell you what you can and can't buy. So I think I'm with you on that one. If it's not healthy choices, I get, and their money would go a lot further, if they spent other things. But I think we need less government involvement and not more. Less, not more. And Joe says, one time I was laid off long enough to go broke with 5 children, no food stamp help. Bank account was broke, but my car was newer than 5 years old. Yeah, that's one of the stipulations I do believe is if you have a vehicle, they would expect you to sell your vehicle. But then at the same time, Joe, and I know you understand where I'm coming from here, you see people with very nice new vehicles who are receiving, thousands of dollars in state benefits, different types of state aid. And we all know part of the problem in this country is there are people who intentionally have children to get more money in state aid. And then what do? They go out and they sell their food stamp benefits, for drugs or liquor or whatever they might need, cigarettes. There's a lot of misuse that does take place. I don't know how we stop all of that. Right now we already have a system in place where if somebody abuses their benefits by doing such, then they will lose their benefits and potentially banned for life. So, but they don't always get caught. They don't always know who they are. And I think it's so rampant that it's impossible for them really to watch as well as they should. And, in speaking about less government, I feel like less government, is the answer. Less government is, for me, always the answer. And I've got a little video clip from Elon Musk where he talks about exactly that we're America. We're supposed to be free. Isn't that what we're known for, to be free? And I've said for many years, if you've watched me on many multitudes of radio shows I've been on, I've always said that, freedom is an illusion. It is absolutely an illusion. And we feel like we're free. The government tells us we're free, but we've never really truly been free, not in our lifetimes anyway. And, same with your property, I own my home. You don't own your home. You're paying taxes every single month on that home, and it'll never be paid off. You could pay off your house and not own a single penny. And guess what? You're still paying out potentially thousands of dollars a month, towards taxes. And at any time, the government could come and tell you to move. They could say, oh, well, we need your land for this or that, or your land is not safe for you to live on. You don't really own your land. You don't technically own your house. You're going to pay taxes on it forever. There's no such thing of being able to finally, I'm going to pay off my house and things are going to change. Nope. They'll find a way to get money for you. And then when you sell your house, guess what? Then they're going to tax you on the proceeds. So you might have built, up, let's say, wealth in your home, but then you sell it and they take it all back through the government. So no, we are not truly free. And I wish that were the case. And I think this is the closest we've been to seeing true freedom in our future. I think it's going to happen. And, and this I do think is part of Elon Musk's influence over Donald Trump. And now I'm not saying Donald Trump doesn't want us to be free or doesn't want us to have that thumb of the government hanging over us. He realizes that these are things that we, the American people, don't want. That's why he became president, because he also doesn't want these things for us. But I do see Elon Musk's influence. He has a very worldly way of thinking about things. And people don't necessarily like Elon Musk, but from everything I gather, reading between the lines, watching what he says, things that he has said from day one, he really does want people to be free. He wants us all to live a more prosperous life. He wants us all to be a little bit wealthier and healthier. And I think he sees it as kind of a global situation where we as a whole, doesn't have to be here in America, it can start here, where we're all just living better lives. People are allowed to be people like we were meant to be. It was never meant to be that the government tells us we can't collect rainwater, or that farmers can't grow, seeds from whatever vegetables they want, that they have to use these GMO seeds. None of these things should have ever happened. The government shouldn't be telling you how to manage your health. That is none of their business. It is absolutely none of the government's business how you manage your health. And we need less government. And we've gotten to this point where the government controls. I feel the government's presence in my life every single day. You can't do this. You can't do that. You got to go get a license for this. You've got to pay a fee for this. If you want to do business here, you have to go and get separate insurance, separate business license, separate permits. You've got to get this guard card and that guard card because I'm in the security industry. And everything is just so government controlled. And I don't know about you guys, but I am tired of it. I actually want to feel free. And I think we're closer to that than ever. Jay says, only the sheeple and crooked Democrats don't like Elon. That's how I feel, Jay. But I've seen a lot of people on my Facebook page who are conservatives who are kind of like, they don't like him. I don't know if they're hearing maybe some of the left propaganda or if they're just not understanding, what it is he wants. And a lot of people, of course, remember Elon from PayPal and from him owning PayPal, from him having Tesla, and how at one point he did have a little bit more, he still has some very liberal leanings, by the way, not politically, maybe personally, as some of us do. Good morning, Scott. So I want to take a look at this video from Elon Musk, and I really think this guy's going to influence our future in great ways, and not
I've
just
had
now,
many
but
conversations with President Trump, who is very much aligned in thinking that we need significant government reform. We need to get the government out of people's lives, really, and have America be the land of liberty, which is that is what has made America great, is the land of liberty and opportunity. So you maximize people's personal freedom, and we make sure that getting ahead is a function of hard work and talent, and an honest day's work. That's really what should get people ahead, and that's the only thing.
Talent and hard work. I mean, isn't that true? Talent and hard work. You get the government out of our lives. I'm all for capitalism. I have, obviously I'm always going to support capitalism, but let's get the government out of our lives. The government shouldn't tell me what to do every day of my life. I shouldn't be regulated over every single thing I do. I worry constantly about having chickens because every day I worry somebody's going to show up at my door saying, oh, you shouldn't have these chickens, or something about avian flu or God knows what else. And I'm tired of that. I just want us to be free people. If I want to go out and collect rainwater, that should be my ability to do so. I should be able to, as an American, do anything I want to do if I'm not harming anyone, but instead, it's almost fishing season for me. I'm going to have to go out and get my fishing license, more money. Where's that money going? I've spent a lot of money in my lifetime on fishing licenses and permits and other licenses for everything, right? For absolutely everything. But if you come into this country illegally, you don't need a fishing license. You don't need any of these permits for anything at all. It's only for Americans. If you live here and you pay taxes, or even if you don't pay back taxes, if you're an American citizen, all of these rules apply to you. But if you come into this country illegally, nothing applies to you. Absolutely nothing. You're free. They are the only people that have the real freedom, right? They're free to come into this country and do anything they want to do, but not for Americans. Nope, not for us. And it's just crazy. Lori says, honest day's work, that's what will stop a lot of people. Yeah, and we've got to get back to those basics. We really have to get back to those basics. Allison says, trout season, March 1st. You got that right, Allison. I don't know if I'm going to have time to go out and fish for trout, but I would really like to. And if you're here in Missouri, if you've ever been out to St. James, Missouri, man, they have the most beautiful park and the best, trout hatchery. And I've spent so many days, with family going there and walking around and looking. And I bought all of this trout fishing stuff and even got my trout permit, but I actually never had time to go trout fishing. I was hoping to. And last year I was hoping to. I went to Georgia, bought more trout fishing stuff because Georgia, of course, is the trout capital of the world. And we were actually staying in a cabin right on the river where they were catching, a big trout river. And no, didn't have time to fish. So one of these days I'm going to make some time. bass fishing season is here too. And Jeannie, Musk is who? He seems to know a lot, but he doesn't believe in God. Jeannie, I don't know. I've never heard, I don't know if I've ever heard Elon talk about God. I'll have to go back and take a look at his Christian beliefs. I'm not really sure. And if that's the case, then I guess we have to ask ourselves, if somebody is helping us in other ways, does it matter if they're a Christian or not a Christian? I don't know. I know a lot of people who are not Christians who don't believe in God, who are still good people. They just need to hopefully be swayed into thinking something other than what they think. And a lot of people have their non-Christian values for a lot of different reasons. And of course, I don't agree with that. And I worry about the people who aren't Christians. I certainly worry. I am a big believer. I've seen it with my own eyes. I'm not going to get into the story today, but some of you have heard my story before when I was very ill and in the ICU and saw some things. And so I know for a fact that God exists. There's no doubt in my mind that when we leave this earth, when we leave this life, not only do we go to another place, but we also, people are there, your loved ones are there to escort you to that place. So there's a lot I know, and I'm not saying I think it, I know it. And so therefore, anytime somebody tells me they're not Christian, I think, gosh, you're a good person. And I hope that you see the light someday for your own salvation. But am I the person, who's going to say, well, just because you don't believe in God, you're not a good person, and I'm not going to listen to anything you say? And the answer would be no. So I'm going to explore that, Jeannie. Thank you so much for bringing that up. And some of the other things I want to talk about today, Anthony Weiner's laptop. We haven't talked about that in a long time, have we? Anthony, remember that name, Anthony Weiner? It's so funny to even say his name, quite honestly. And remember his wife is Huma Abedin, and she was Hillary Trump's personal, I think she was her secretary for a while. She spent, I think, 25 years, something along those lines, at Hillary Clinton's side. And then if you recall, Anthony Weiner, her husband, they ended up splitting up. He got in trouble for, I don't even remember. You guys might remember what he did. It was something obscene on his laptop. Well, somehow, of course, people got a hold of his laptop. The government got a hold of his laptop. The New York City had his laptop for quite some time. No one would ever really talk about what they saw. And I'm going to play this video. Remember Sidney Powell? Talk about a blast from the past. And people have mixed feelings on Sidney Powell. So you can take this however you want to take it. I personally do believe there's things on Anthony Weiner's laptop. I think we're going to find out what they are and see what exactly we found out. And after we listen to this video, we're going to talk about what is allegedly on this laptop. What did NYPD police officers, investigators see? Is it truly why 9 out of 12, allegedly the story is 12 NYPD investigators, detectives viewed Weiner's laptop, and 9 of them unalived themselves? That is true. That is actually a fact. Now, is it this why, or is it something else? But either way, we're going to look at this quick video clip of Sidney Powell, and then we're going to talk about
one of the things, if I were the president, I'd do is demand the Anthony Weiner laptop and get it to the most trusted person in the military to take apart everything on it and then start using it. There's a lot that can be prosecuted, I have no doubt, on that laptop. In fact, I heard that the New York police officers who saw some of it, even though they're hardened investigators, literally had to go throw up.
All right. So in what she's talking about, sorry, I stopped that. That's a fairly long video. And what she's talking about is when they confiscated that laptop, however they came into possession. I have to say, I don't even remember how they came into possession of it. Well, at that time, we had these New York City NYPD investigators looking through the laptop, looking through the files. If you guys recall, there was a lot of leaked information. If you can remember, that's where Pizzagate, we started learning about Pizzagate. We were seeing Hillary Clinton's emails about life insurance. Do you remember those claims? And the life insurance, allegedly, they named a lot of people who are close associates of the Clintons who are no longer here. Were all named under these emails that were titled life insurance. And they talked about Frazzle Drip. Do you remember Frazzle Drip? And I'm not going to get into that because it's absolutely horrifying, which goes back to the adrenochrome. And all of this information was allegedly on Anthony Weiner's laptop. And so the story goes that it was so devastating to see the videos that there were, a lot of, what do they call, what is the term for that? Snuff videos, where they actually could witness, children being murdered for adrenochrome and these types of things. Now, I can't say any of this is true. And Allison says, who was his wife? Her name was Huma Abedin, sorry. Huma Abedin, and that was his wife. And so therefore, here's some of the things that were allegedly uncovered on Hillary Clinton's laptop. Money laundering, claims of money laundering, child exploitation, sex crimes with minors, perjury, pay to play involving the Clinton Foundation, and obstruction of justice in various cases. They talked about, again, this frazzle drip, something like that drip. And it's a pretty crazy situation. And some of the things that were revealed to us were heartbreaking. A lot of things that would put people into prison. But was it true? Do we even know? Donald Trump didn't do anything about it in his last term. So maybe there was really nothing to it. But there's a lot of talk now that is going to be added to the list of Anna Paulina and her group, and what they're going to be looking into is that laptop. And we're going to find out potentially, was it true? If any of these things are true, maybe that will finally lead to a prosecution of Hillary Clinton and some of her closer associates. And I know you guys are going to be like, no, that's crazy talk. And it sounds like crazy talk to me. It still, to me, sounds like crazy talk. Back in the day when they talked about Pizzagate and all this stuff, I thought that's the craziest stuff. There is no way that's true. That's just people letting their conspiracy minds get away with them. And, it's even really just 6 months ago, I thought, gosh, I don't know if I believe in that Pizzagate stuff. I know that exploitation happens. And tomorrow we're going to talk about how George H.W. Bush may have started, believe it or not, started Pizzagate during his term. So maybe it wasn't Hillary Clinton to begin with. Maybe she wasn't the one who started the exploitation of minors within the government branches. So we'll get into that tomorrow about George Bush. But in the meantime, then I started reading a story. I don't know, it was a couple months ago. It's been since I've had the show because we talked about it, where one of the main people that was named in this Pizzagate filing and, all the stories was actually arrested for, guess what, for raping children and making videos of it. So maybe there's more to it than what we thought. And then the adrenochrome. I always thought that is the craziest thing I've ever heard. There is no way that's true. And then you hear Jim Caviezel come out and talk about it very plainly and say, yes, it absolutely is true. And of course, he was outcast, from Hollywood for talking about it. And you have to really look at these things. Sometimes things seem really far-fetched. And for me, they especially do. Because some of these things I read, I think, that's just crazy. There's no way these things can be true. That's just people's let their imagination get away from them. And then all of a sudden you have that validation and you're thinking, holy cow, these people are talking about it. They say they were there. Look at P. Diddy as an example. Charges filed against P. Diddy. I don't know if you saw that or not. Ryan says, good morning, Ryan. I want to see justice served for what has been done by these monsters to children. That rabbit hole goes so deep, it's truly sickening. And apparently it's gone on for far longer than what we ever even expected. Far longer. Alan says Bill Clinton has been exploiting women since he was Arkansas governor, as has Hillary Clinton. She's complicit in all of that, not separate from it. She's part of it. So we're going to get to that. And, there's just so much crazy stuff going on. It's like every day more, but we're getting all those validations. Soon that validation will extend to the P. Diddy tapes, the P. Diddy files, finally charges, of course, being pressed against P. Diddy. And, people their heads are spinning. We're going to find out who's on the Epstein list. I saw a bunch of names released over the weekend that have leaked allegedly from a file. And I'm not going to talk about these names because I don't know if it's true. And if it is, it would be pretty much the names we've all talked about anyway, so nothing new. So I'll be curious to see what those names are when we find out. But I'm just going to show you here very quickly about the charges.
I'm announcing the unsealing of a 3-count indictment, charging Sean Combs with racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking, interstate transportation for prostitution. The indictment alleges that between at least 2008 and the present, Combs abused, threatened, and coerced victims to fulfill his sexual desires, protect his reputation, and conceal his conduct. As alleged in the indictment, to carry out this conduct, Sean Combs led and participated in a racketeering conspiracy that used the business empire he controlled to carry out criminal activity, including sex trafficking, forced labor, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and the obstruction of justice. Let me say a little bit more about the charges. The indictment alleges that Combs abused and exploited women and other people for years, and in a variety of ways. As alleged, Combs used force, threats of force, and coercion to cause victims to engage in extended sexual performances with male commercial sex workers, some of whom he transported or caused to be transported over state lines. Combs allegedly planned and controlled the sex performances, which he called freak-offs, and he often electronically recorded them. The freak-offs sometimes lasted days at a time, involved multiple commercial sex workers, and often involved a variety of narcotics, such as ketamine, ecstasy, and GHB, which Combs distributed to the victims to keep them obedient and compliant. As alleged, when Combs didn't get his way, he was violent, and he subjected
And this isn't new. You're not certainly hearing anything that's new, not breaking news. This is old news. But we're going to finally get some answers. We always talk about accountability. We're going to get some answers, and those lists are going to be revealed, and they're going to be revealed soon. Some people said February 21st. We didn't hear anything on February 21st. Some people say on February 27th. I don't think there's a set date, but I'll tell you one thing. Now, take this with a grain of salt. I think it's true. We'll find out if it's true. But the story is people are saying, mark this date on your calendar. I'm going to read this to you. March the 4th, 2025. They're calling it the Great Revealing. So, is it true? Is it not true? We'll find out. Trump has announced that he will be addressing the joint Congress. And every member of Congress is told that their presence is mandatory. Again, March 4th. Coming up, every network must carry the address live. And what's going to happen? What are we going to learn during this public address? Is it going to be nothing? Is it going to be something? I mean, Donald Trump is telling all of the news networks they have to carry this event live on March 4th. I don't know too much about it at this point. I don't know the timeline or anything else on March the 4th. Is he going to reveal? Is he going to talk about what happened with Doge, all the money uncovered? Is he going to make an announcement maybe about people getting money back, from this Doge dividend? Is he going to talk about the P. Diddy list and the Epstein list? We just don't know. But I can guarantee you, if this is true, if we can confirm this is true and that Donald Trump is calling for a live press conference where every single member of Congress has to be there, it's mandatory that they have to be there. And if it's true that every single network has to carry it live, I don't know if he can force a private network to carry it live, quite honestly. He can ask them to. I don't know if that's something a private company has to do. But either way, what is it he's going to talk about? Now, my guess would be, just because he wants every member of Congress to be there and because it's mandatory, that it's going to be about overspending. He's probably going to tell people of Congress, okay, and he knows who's getting the kickbacks, by the way. Donald Trump knows which members of Congress are getting the kickbacks. He already knows. Is he going to out them publicly? Are these people going to be forced to resign? What's going to happen to the people who receive these kickbacks on your tax dollars? Maybe we'll find out. It could be a situation where he might really reprimand Congress in front of the American people to say, hey, this is all your fault. Yes, they gave you 1,500 pages and told you had 72 hours to read it, but you shouldn't have signed it until you read it, until you knew. But even then, Congress isn't wholly responsible. They're partly responsible, largely responsible. But then we have the money that Congress signs off on, these spending bills. Well, they go to USAID, and the CIA decides who USAID pays. The USAID, I call them USAID. And so therefore, Congress knows that they've approved this money. It goes to USAID. The CIA says, okay, well, this is how you pay out certain parts of money. And then some money goes back, of course, to these various members of Congress who signed off on these spending bills, because those are the deals that are made, the underhanded deals that made. Maybe we need to outlaw lobbyists, because lobbyists run around and they make these deals and they say, oh, we're lobbying for XX corporation. Will you, Senator so-and-so, if you sign this bill, this is what you're going to get in return. And trust me, this is not in writing. These deals are underhanded, and I know lobbyists, I know how these things work. And, they have a job to do. It's not their fault necessarily, but it's like they go and they make these deals and they're underhanded deals. Nobody knows what they are. There's a reason why we just talked about having 160,000, people in civil service who are millionaires right now, because they're all making these deals. And of course, the lobbyists, they get their kickback too. That's why most lobbyists, are also quite wealthy, because they get a little piece of the pie too for working out these underhanded deals. And let's see here. Joe Fry, Trump said Elon should be more aggressive. Time to expose who was receiving the money. And maybe that's exactly what we're going to find out. And you're not going to get all the names. Some people will be held back for multiple reasons, especially if there might be something bigger they can get. They'll use it as leverage. And you're talking about the Epstein list, I believe. And you're probably right. They will probably hold some names back. There will be people on there who probably won't be mentioned, and I hope that's not the case. Hopefully these files end up in enough hands that there's no way to keep some names off the list. Just like the JFK files, we still haven't heard anything about that, and that's supposed to be released publicly. We still don't really know a lot. And they said that a lot of those files were so heavily redacted. Will be the same thing with the P. Diddy files, and the Epstein files will also be heavily redacted. We won't know, of course, until the time comes. Jay says, I think they need to banish the lobbyists. I think that the role of the lobbyists needs to change. Do they need to be banned altogether? Probably, quite honestly, probably. There shouldn't be a go between, corporations and people with, a private stake in whatever a bill is proposed shouldn't be able to have a mediator, which is what a lobbyist is, go back and talk to members of Congress. It should be absolutely against the law. And to some degree, some of it is against the law, but they do it anyway. And everybody's making money on it but you. And it's your money going into these funds, which is crazy. And but a lot of other things going on too. I wanted to talk about Warren Buffett very quickly. I've got a lot of little things to go over. There's so many little tidbits of news coming out that I wanted to talk about. Warren Buffett. And it's going to take me a second here to find my file on Warren Buffett, but I'll tell you, I have different things in different places in my phone that I save. Sometimes it's too much to write down, so I just save it in here. I'm like, well, that'll make it a little bit easier. And so Warren Buffett paying out the largest amount of money, of course, with Berkshire Hathaway, $26.8 billion in taxes paid to the government. And this is what Warren Buffett said. He made a speech. He actually wrote this letter and sent it out to all of his shareholders and, talked about the government spending his money wisely. Think about it. That $26.8 billion is a lot of money. Joe says Warren Buffett is holding a lot of cash and a lot of treasury bonds. Remember, he owns more treasury bonds than the United States government does right now. He just purchased all these treasury bonds. Sherry says Jasmine Crocker has the goods on them all, and she's turning them over to cash. Well, I'm glad to hear that. They need to go to cash. They need to go to the FBI for sure. And so this is what Warren Buffett stated. He said, spend it wisely. Take care of the many who, for no fault of their own, get the short straws in life. They deserve better. And never forget that we need you to maintain a stable currency. And that result requires both wisdom and vigilance on your part. And he went on to say, he was talking about taxes when he first took over. When he first took over Berkshire Hathaway, there were no taxes. The company paid zero taxes. And they went from that to $26.8 billion. Now, of course, that was back in 1965. He said that sort of economic behavior may be understandable for glamorous startups, but it's a blinking yellow light when it happens at a venerable pillar of American industry. Berkshire was headed for the ash can when he took over. And they were not paying any taxes in 1965 when Warren Buffett took over. Now $26.8 billion, the largest tax payment ever to the US Treasury Department, which is absolutely insane. So I do hope, and I know under Donald Trump, they will spend his money very wisely. And I think it's great that Warren Buffett is always looking out for the little guy, and he really is. And a lot of people follow every move he makes when it comes to his money because they all think, well, if Warren Buffett's doing it, we need to do it too. Now, is that true? I don't know. But you know what? We've got a lot less folks watching over us either way. A lot of firings this week. About 2,000 people fired from, you said, the USAID, 2,000 people. And not only that, but they're repurposing that building for border control. So border control is going to move into that building. That's going to become their new headquarters because guess what? You said that 2,000 people out of jobs. They don't need that big building anymore. And we're going to be employing more than ever, more Border Patrol agents than we've ever had before. So therefore, that is going to serve as the corporate office for all of the folks it's going to need in this government to control our southern border. Obviously, our Border Patrol folks aren't going to be in that office, but they're going to need a very big administration in that building to make sure that we never go back to where we were, which, by the way, illegal border crossings right now down 93%. 93%. That's just a point above where we were in Donald Trump's last term, which is just insane to me. Lots of firings going on. We had the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General C.Q. Brown, fired. They're working their way through the military. And then we have Chief of Naval Operations, Lisa Franchetti, fired. Just as soon as General Brown was let go, off she went. And then we have acting ICE director Caleb Vitello been removed from his position. And we think it's because he was the leaker. Now, could it possibly be true? You know that Tom Homan said, we're going to get to the bottom of this. We're going to find out who is leaking this information. How do these violent gang members know that ICE is coming? Because this is coming from the top, the very top of the ICE organization, or the FBI. Who's letting these people know? And all of a sudden, we see the acting ICE director, Caleb Vitello, losing his job. Is he the leaker? Or did he allow the leak to occur? We don't know, but we're hopefully going to certainly find out. Mary says, Eric Schmidt said, remember when Democrats and their media allies cheered the firing of every single federal employee who refused to take the COVID shot? Yes. And that's why I said, when it comes to deportations, Democrats are losing their minds. They're saying, oh, you can't come into the schools, you can't come into the churches and pick up illegals. Well, I remember a time during COVID when they were coming into the churches and into the schools and making arrests during the COVID times. Don't you? You go to church and, the churches were closed. You can't go to church because it's a group setting, but people go to church and guess what? They were arresting the congregation, they were arresting the ministers, the priests, and so on. And the same for schools. Oh, you're a parent and you go to a school board meeting and you stand up against these draconian laws forcing your kids to cover their faces in school. But you can go to a restaurant, and when you stand up and go to the bathroom is the only time you have to have your mask on. You can sit at a table and eat without a mask. But if you stand up, that really makes a difference. It's so crazy. And so therefore, they made plenty of arrests during that time at schools and at churches. It's such a double-edged sword, isn't it? It just never ends. Such a double-edged sword. Everything they say is exactly what they did. They just don't like it because the shoe is on the other foot right now, isn't it? They just don't like it. And, speaking of not liking it, how can you not like what Donald Trump is doing? I've got a list here of some of his accomplishments. This is in 1 month, a 30-day period. Think about that. This is how much things have changed in 30 days. So economy accomplishments. I'm going to read these down the line to you. Signed an executive order on day one, ordering all executive departments and agencies to deliver emergency price relief to the American people and increase the prosperity of the American worker. Implemented 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum imports, helping to protect the more than 1 million American jobs put at risk by a surge in steel imports from Mexico. Eliminated the Biden-era electric vehicle mandate, which was a good one. And crude oil prices have already fallen over 5% since Donald Trump took office. Let's see here. The DOE postponed burdensome Biden era efficiency standard rules. Should that say Doge? But it said, I don't know, it says DOE. Standard rules for appliances, saving American consumers large sums. Here are the border accomplishments. Declared a national border emergency, allowing the DoD to deploy the National Guard and active duty military to secure the southern border, something that should have been done a long time ago. Ended catch and release, ensuring detained illegal migrants won't be released back into our streets. I mean, again, something that should have been done a long time ago. Reestablished remain in Mexico and restarted the construction of the border wall, preventing illegal migrants from entering the U.S. in the first place. Signed the Lincoln-Riley Act into law, ensuring ICE will detain illegal migrants arrested or charged with theft or violence. Migrant encounters declined 93%. Think about this. That just goes to show that the Biden administration didn't want to these were not their goals. They did not want this, because if they wanted it, they could have done it. And Lori says, we think and hope that my son's new engineer government job with the FAA may be safe. The probationary period is a whole year. Maybe with all the plane crashes, unfortunately, they are not touching the FAA. You know, their DOGE is actually investigating the FAA now, and the FAA and NASA, and we'll see what happens. You know, there will be cuts, I think, in these areas, but I think that the cuts will be minimal when it comes to the FAA. And Joe Fry says, I never obeyed any of their nonsense. Exactly, Joe, you can't. Allison says, it was great to see Trump call out the governor from Maine not obeying. Yes, you know, banning transgenders in women's sports. You know, it was Allison. And I'm not going to play the video. I didn't save it because I can't stand watching that lady, about her dancing on the stage at a drag show. And she's just as happy as can be. And I loved seeing that exchange, because Donald Trump, I mean, he called her out and she's like, I'll see you in court. Like, okay, well, this is the president of your country, lady. He has the final say. I mean, in the end, Donald Trump has the final say. And I know that's a slippery slope because we may not like the next president, and we might say, okay, well, we don't really want that president to have the final say. So it is a little bit of a slippery slope. Joe Fry says, make appliances great again, so they last more than 5 years. They have engineers design these appliances and cars to start breaking down after 5 years. I agree. I absolutely do agree. My dishwasher is not running right now. I don't have the faintest clue why. I'm going to have to eventually take some time out and look at it. But it's a fairly new dishwasher. It's like, what is happening? And yes, I remember for years my parents way back in the day had a 1965 dryer. Or no, it was a 1969 dryer. And that thing, I don't know where it came from, who had it to begin with. I really have no idea. But somehow it came into my possession. And I used that dryer because it dried my clothes so well. I used that thing up until, about 2006. From 1969 to 2006, that dryer ran. And then one day it sparked and caught a little fire, and that was the end of its life. But they don't make appliances like that again. And also, think about this. They good morning, Phyllis, is they also were making those, clean energy initiatives. And it started, of course, in California, started spreading across the country, where they said you can no longer have gas appliances. It has to be electric. Some more BS is what that is, especially getting rid of our incandescent light bulbs. Thank God Trump brought those back. I was buying them on the black market. I love incandescent light. I cannot stand LED light, even though I have LED light right now in this room. I cannot stand LED lights. And I think they make everybody look bad. Everybody looks bad in LED lights. So lots more to talk about. Medicare, they're going to tackle Medicare. Here's what's crazy in Medicare. And I've got some figures for you here. I can't wait till Doge gets into the Medicare system, because this is absolutely outrageous. So a U.S. pharmacist has come forward, kind of a whistleblower. And what this person is stating, they said there has been massive Medicare overpayments. And we already know this is true. It's just more validation. So they gave an example of this one drug. I probably can't say it. Abiraterone. Never heard of it. They said it costs $96 without insurance, yet Medicare pays $3,400 per prescription. That's a 3,441% markup. And they said in 2022, Medicare filed 442,000 prescriptions, costing taxpayers $1.5 billion. Think about that. A $96 prescription, if you don't have any insurance, and therefore there's no one they can bilk out of some money, that's going to cost $96. But because they can charge Medicare this exorbitant amount of money, that prescription goes up to $3,400. That's just like when you're in the hospital and you need to take a Tylenol. You know, you can buy a whole bottle of Tylenol for what? Like, I don't buy Tylenol, but $6, $7, something like that. And then you go to the hospital and they charge you like $70, you know, for one Tylenol. I think it's more like $15, but it's still absolutely outrageous. They, you know, how they charge these things. And I mean, it's crazy. It says if purchased with no insurance price, the total cost of this particular drug, abiraterone, I have no idea what that does. It would cost $42 million. If it's at the no insurance price. But if you add insurance, then it comes out to 1.4 billion. Isn't that insane? That's just more theft. It's just more theft. It never ends. And Linda says it's unreal how much my doctor bills for office calls. You know, healthcare costs is out of control. Insurance costs completely out of control. I was looking at my bill the other day. I have insurance on a boat. I don't know. I think I carry insurance on 4 different cars, a boat, and you know, there's home insurance and all these other different insurances. And I was looking at the amount. I'm like, this is absolutely insane. Absolutely insane that the prices of auto insurance. You know, boat insurance is actually pretty moderate. And considering I had a fire in my boat, I probably deserve the the boat insurance premiums. But you know, home insurance, absolutely insane. You know, where's the regulation? Now, I have no doubt that eventually Doge Department will be making its way over, you know, to the insurance industry. I have no doubt that will eventually happen into these Medicare programs and so on. But it's absolutely insane. And Joe says NASA has a probe running through space that's been running since the 70s. You know, do they or don't they? You know, I'm not so sure I have a lot of faith in anything they tell us about space. I really don't. I think there's so much lies that have gone on when it comes to space travel and what we're capable of doing. And we talked about that a lot on Friday. For anyone who didn't see any of those episodes, we talked about did we or did we not go to the moon? It's kind of funny because friends of mine who happened to hear the show messaged me after it and they're like, what are you talking about? He's like, of course we never went to the moon. You know, who thinks we did? And there are still people who think we did. I'm certainly not one of those people. And we definitely did talk about that. Karen, you also have a good day. Karen heading off to work, something I've got to do right here in just a few minutes after 9 o'clock. So lots going on, a lot more things that I want to cover before it's time to go. And so I'm just going to kind of go down the list because we're getting close. We're getting close to time. And, you know, most of the stuff I've already talked about. We've got to talk about Dan Bongino, FBI deputy director. I mean, come on. How good can it get? We're going to have Kash Patel leading the FBI, Dan Bongino, his counterpart. I mean, we have effectively taken control of the FBI. And the FBI agents I know are absolutely ecstatic over it. They love it. They are so happy because they're like, finally, we can do our jobs. It was great enough when it was Kash Patel. And you know, and Bongino wanted that job. And now you're going to see all these articles that, oh, radio host, podcaster is going to be, you know, the next in line for the FBI, you know, role. And come on, the guy is brilliant for one. I've never watched his show. I have a thing that I don't watch other people's shows. And it's not because I don't respect them or like what they want to say. I don't want to be influenced by what other people are saying or another person's style. So I read the news, and then that's what I talk to you guys about is the news that I've read. If Dan Bongino's talking about something or some other podcaster is talking about something, I don't have the faintest clue. I don't listen to any other shows, no radio shows, no podcasts or anything along those lines. But I've heard that his show is really good. I've seen little clips, you know, here and there of things he's said. But I mean, he was in the Secret Service. He was a beloved member of the Secret Service for a very long time. He's got a master's degree in psychology. You know, he has another degree from Penn State. You know, the guy's brilliant and he will do an absolutely fantastic job. I have no doubt in my mind he will do a fantastic job. Linda Ward says, yes, she agrees. And Allison says, we will find out who planted the pipe bomb at the DNC. Maybe, you know, we'll have to go back to the same facial recognition they used to spy on all the J6ers, which, by the way, subpoenas going out to Cheney and Pelosi and Schiff for J6. So we'll see when they're brought in to testify what they'll have to say. I think we're going to see a lot more coming out about J6. I really do. Because we had Americans being held in solitary confinement for extended periods of time, people who were denied their basic rights, being held in a federal prison. And I think that we're going to see some prosecutions. Now, I don't know who it is that will be prosecuted, but I do expect to see some prosecutions that do take place over that. And, we'll be breaking it down as it happens. And that just happened recently. So we'll see where that all goes. Governor Greg Abbott of Texas, he's wanting to, I'm sure you guys would agree with this. He is going to propose banning China from buying American land. Should China be allowed to buy American land? Now, we all know that when China buys land, what they do is they sell it, sometimes they sell pieces of it to other people in China. So you might have a group that initially comes in and buys it, and then they sell it to somebody within the government or close to the government acting on the government's behalf. And what they're doing is they're buying land very near to our military bases. They're using communication devices to listen, to tap in to what our military is doing and saying. They have devices that they use to spy on us in every single way. And why they do it, it's kind of strange. I almost think, like, why does China doing this? Or is anything we're saying really all that important for them to want to hear? But they are. And I really agree with Governor Greg Abbott that China should not be allowed to purchase land in the United States. Now, someday, I think we will be an ally of China. I think we will be forced to be an ally of China. I see that happening, not as far down the road as maybe some of you do. I think it could happen certainly under Donald Trump's term. And as we move away from Europe and Europe becomes our enemy, I do think that Russia will be our friend. And we talked about this on Friday. And China will also eventually be our ally. We're really not as far apart as I think they would want us to believe. But I don't think that China should be able to buy land in the United States, not for these purposes. Bill Gates shouldn't be able to buy land either. But he, keeps buying up potato farms and other things so that he can make sure that he raises bugs and worms and all the other alternative protein. You probably saw Joe Reed fired from MSNBC. I was going to play a video of her, and I'm like, man, I can't do it. I don't even want to see her face. That woman, I'm glad she's fired. I hope she never finds another job in the airwaves. She'll start a podcast, and she'll have her little liberal followers on those podcasts. But man, that lady is absolutely whacked out. And London, I talked about this a while back. We know that Elon Musk and Donald Trump, they're going to do a deep dive at Fort Knox. They're going to get down to, is there gold? Is there not gold? Where is the gold? Thinking about live streaming it when they first enter Fort Knox to see, is there really gold there? All these jokes going around about how, started, of course, Donald Trump is the first person that said this, that, we need to go in and look to see if there really is gold. What if it's just a bunch of plaster bricks painted gold, to look like it's real gold? Maybe something happened a long time ago where they've replaced the gold bricks with, other materials and, just kind of getting by with it. That could have happened. A lot of people do think that, Joe says, joyless read, which is pretty funny. And so Jay says, we are never going to be allies with either country. Jay, come on now. I told you on Friday, you got to get that old Cold War mentality out of your head. New things are happening. We got to go with the times, and we got to build alliances. And those alliances are not going to be with Europe. Clearly so, with what happened in Germany's election yesterday. But either way, the gold, I told you guys about this story a couple weeks ago, because back then I thought, this is really strange. Like, why is this happening? Why are people talking about this on these back channels where they were saying that, there's a shortage? Well, now they're saying there's a shortage of gold in London. How did London become short of gold? Well, remember 2 weeks ago, I was telling you guys that there's all these backstories about gold being transported from London to the United States. This was under Biden's term, not Donald Trump. And it was kind of in that interim where Trump had already won the election, but had not yet been inaugurated. All these stories were flying around that the gold is being transported from London into the United States. And it makes me wonder Did our gold, was it somehow in London? And now they thought, okay, Donald Trump is probably going to want to see the gold. We better start scurrying it back over. And then yesterday I was reading a story and I really kind of thought all that was nonsense. I didn't spend a lot of time on it because I'm thinking that's silly, probably nonsense, just more whatever talk going on that people are, sometimes you hear things, you're just like, there's no way that's true. And I was kind of thinking about that. Then yesterday I read an article about the shortage of gold in London. I'm like, what is going on here? That I just heard that all this gold was being transported and these, hidden, agendas back to the United States from London. Now all of a sudden London is reporting a gold shortage. It's like, what is going on? Is it related? Is it a big nothing? I don't know. So that's something to keep an eye on if you start hearing about gold coming from London into the United States. I personally believe that a lot of, if not the majority of our gold was sold a long time ago. The old story of the Rockefellers. A woman died, by the way. She fell off magically. One of the Rockefeller secretaries fell off the roof after reporting that the Rockefellers had sold the gold to Europe. So we'll see. Maybe that's why London has our gold. Maybe they did actually sell it, and to other private investigators. And Jay says, look simply at the human rights violations in China. It won't ever happen regardless of what you say. We, the people, would not stand for it. I think, again, Jane, with all respect, I think you're wrong. I think that we have all been fed by the propaganda machine for a really long time. A really long time. And when there's a lot of people in China who will tell you that the stories we Americans hear is absolutely not true, that we are the ones who are getting fake information. We're the ones who are actually being corralled by our government. We are the ones suffering human rights violations, not them. Now, you'll have to talk to somebody from China to understand. There's also people from China who say it's absolutely true. So, I don't know. But I do know there's a lot of propaganda that comes out. And I think that there are things that China could do differently. And God knows there's a lot that our country absolutely has to do differently. I can't look at China and say, you're such a terrible country because of your human rights violations and your communism and everything else. And then look at the United States and say, we've killed millions of people all around the world because of our policies. We have pillaged countries for their natural resources. And in the process, we've killed millions of people. We have destabilized countries with propaganda. We still do. Up until literally Donald Trump has taken office, we were still doing those things. We've only stopped doing them in the past 30 days. We were going into countries, and if we didn't like the government because they wouldn't give us what we wanted, guess what? We just replaced them, just like we did with Ukraine in 2014, Libya, Afghanistan, Syria. I could go down the list. The damage that we, the United States, have caused to the people of the world is insurmountable. So how can any of us look at China and think, oh, they're such bad people, those human rights, abuses and the things that they're doing? They can change. They could have new leadership. Different things can change there. But we, the United States, man, we better not be throwing any stones at any other country with all the things we've done. We, the American people, are not behind all of these actions, just like the people of China wouldn't be behind the actions of their government. But we have no right to throw any stones at any other country over any violence that they've put out there. I mean, we're under Obama, killing people with drones. There's a lot of things we've done in our country, a lot of lives lost, millions of lives lost at our hands. And it's just terrible. Allison says the CCP has violated many human rights, and they probably have. But again, we have no right to cast those stones, no right whatsoever. We and our country underneath the Democrat regime, man, we are hated by the world. People from Iran, we get so upset because they chant, oh, death to America. Well, you know why they chant that? Because they were once a free people. The people in Iran were once free. They walked around just like we do. And now look at them. They're all running around in black burqas and have no rights at all. Same for the people of Afghanistan. Same for the people of Iraq. Same for the people of Syria. This is all our doing. We are literally the worst country on the planet. The things that we've done, the human rights abuses we have perpetrated on the people of the world. I mean, our government and the people in the Democrat regime who are responsible, I have to be very careful saying this, but these people, they need to be tried, they need to be imprisoned, and they need to be dealt with in very harsh ways. because what they have done to the world is absolutely unbelievable. Thank God now we have Donald Trump in office, and all of that is going to end. I hope it ends. There's a lot going on right now with Donald Trump and working out this peace deal with Ukraine and with Russia. And he's really towing a fine line, because we have Europe over here saying we're going to, they're not saying, they actually did sanction Russia with one of the largest, sanctions they've placed on Russia since the incursion into Ukraine began. And I went through the list. I'm not going to read it now. You can go out and read that if you care about it. And, a lot of different things they're doing, banning, Russian media and different things over in Europe. Germany, they're tired of this wokeness. Now, I wanted the AfD party to win. They're the People's Party. And I actually thought they did win. I did. I kept reading announcements that the, Conservative Party won. And I really thought they did win, but it was another group that won, which is just as good. I was still voting for the AfD if it were my option, but the other party is just as good. And, they want to be independent from the United States. They want to be independent from Europe. They allegedly want to withdraw from the European Union because they want to be self-sufficient. That's where it's at. You have to learn to be self-sufficient. But we are in a very perilous place right now. We have Donald Trump again towing that line, because Europe, we're moving further and further away from Europe. They do not like Donald Trump. And I'll tell you what, if you're listening to this show and you're a conservative, they don't like you either. Europe is not our friend. Now, the people are a different story. The government, they are not our friend. They don't like us. If they could, they would come over here to the United States and they would imprison every single one of us. That's how they would deal with us. They would imprison us all. And we would all be sitting in Guantanamo Bay right now. So Europe is not our friend. So don't even think that. You might not like China. You might not like Russia, but Europe is our true enemy. Now, Donald Trump is having to make a deal. Ukraine, we got all these minerals. Zelensky started trying to pawn his minerals off on Donald Trump before he was even inaugurated, before he was really even elected. We had, snake oil salesman Tutu Man Zelensky saying, Donald Trump, if you win this election and you support us and continue to give us money, I'm going to give you all of our mineral rights. Well, I posted this on my Facebook page yesterday, kind of the breakdown. While Ukraine holds 2% of the world's lithium, most of it's under Russia control. And, Vladimir Putin, when he invaded Ukraine, he definitely went for the rare earth minerals first. So right now, Russia controls 70% of the rare earth minerals of Ukraine. Now, what they don't control, they're heading for. Now, some of it's in central Ukraine, but it's only a very small fraction. So we, the United States, we're trying to work out a deal for $500 billion worth of rare earth minerals with Ukraine, which is probably about close to all they have. And of course, they classified, the rare earth minerals back in 2005. So it's hard to know exactly what they have and what they've discovered. But Russia controls about 70% of the rare earth minerals. So Donald Trump is doing his best to work out a deal with Vladimir Putin, and there's going to be an election. Now you'll hear, did I say not Vladimir Putin? I'm sorry, I meant Zelensky. Zelensky is going on every media station he can find to say, I'll sacrifice myself if Ukraine can join NATO. I'll step down. Well, he's going to step down anyway. So that doesn't mean anything. They're not going to accept Ukraine into NATO. That will never happen. The countries around Ukraine will never allow that to happen. Not just Russia, but none of these countries will allow it. Hungary made a very large statement over it saying, nope, not going to happen. And so therefore, as a matter of fact, Hungary, Viktor Orban, their prime minister, has been very vocal about being happy that Donald Trump has taken office, being happy that the evil ways of America is going to change under new leadership, and how we're not going to be the criminal element that we once were, in world politics. But will Donald Trump make a deal with Ukraine? Possibly. But if we do so, we absolutely cannot make any kind of deal where we take what minerals, rare earth minerals Ukraine has, and also agree to protect them. Because if Europe does end up sending these 30,000 troops into Ukraine, that would be between England and France. If they do that, they probably will eventually get attacked by Russia. And if that happens, we can't be responsible. We can't send our troops into Ukraine to fight against Russia. I don't think most of the American people would ever agree to that. I know I sure wouldn't. And then if we make the deal with Russia, which I think we can do these deals unilaterally. If we make the deal with Russia where we make a peace deal. We end the fighting. Russia gets to keep the territory they are. Now, if that happens and they don't want more land, then that will allow a little bit more of the rare earth minerals to go towards Ukraine, because there's one area, the Dnipro region. Russia is like 2 miles from there. So if Trump makes the deal now, then that's going to save a lot of those rare earth minerals from coming under Russia's possession. You know, they're almost there. They're trying to get there, and they probably will be there soon if Donald Trump doesn't work out this deal very quickly to save those rare earth minerals that are in that Dnipro region. But I do think that Trump can work out a deal unilaterally, have an election, Zelensky will step down, a new president will be appointed, somebody that the people choose, not we, the United States government, not that we choose, that the people of Ukraine choose, as it should be. And it certainly won't be Zelensky. Zelensky will go to France, like we talked about last week, and have his shelter there and have his $60 billion he's amassed and probably live out a wonderful life over in France. And then Russia, you know, again, like I talked about last week, Russia, things are changing very quickly from Russia. The world has woke up. They see that things are changing. They see that Russia has won this war. Companies trying to get back in, corporations, as we said, Coca-Cola, Subway, I heard Nike. There's a whole list of different companies that are trying to get in. Of course, Putin saying we're going to look at it on a case-by-case basis before we allow them back into our country. Visa, MasterCard, all of these corporations that left when they went into Ukraine, they're now realizing, hey, you know, let's get back into that market now that there's going to be a peace deal. So we'll see how it all works out. But I know and I have faith that whatever Donald Trump does is going to be best for American people. But whatever it is we do is going to push Europe further away, because we're not going to give Europe what they want. They want us to say that if they send troops in for peacekeeping missions, that we're going to back them up, that if they get attacked by Russia at any point, that we're going to jump into the war and fight against Russia. I don't think Donald Trump's going to do that. You know, I think that he's going to offer Ukraine a deal that says, you know what, we've already given you $350 billion, which Zelensky says they don't owe us back. And we're going to help you rebuild. And in turn, we're going to give you $500 billion to rebuild. And in turn, you're going to give us your rare earth minerals, whatever rare earth minerals they have left. And I think we're still going to get the short end of the deal on that. But, you know, it's going to happen any day. Europe, again, has three weeks to ponder over Donald Trump's peace deal with Russia. And they're going to have to decide, are they with us or are they against us? You know, one way or the other. I think they're going to choose that they are against us is what's going to happen. So, you know, Jay, I know you don't like the idea of Russia and or China becoming our ally. I already know Russia will be our ally. They practically already are. China, I think it'll be in the making. And it doesn't mean we have to be friends with them. It just means that militarily and maybe for purposes of rare earth minerals and other things that we need, that we will work out some type of deal with them. I see it happening. I think it's going to happen, certainly under Donald Trump's term. Anyway, that's, I think, about all I have to talk. Oh, you know, I take that back. There were a couple other things. I was getting ready to run out of here, and there's actually two things I want to talk about. FAFO, F-A-F-O, is proposed by Elon Musk. He wants to have a branch that is the strong arm of Doge, the enforcement side of Doge, and it's going to be called the Federal Agency of Financial Oversight, FAFO, F-A-F-O. He wants them to be their oversight, their enforcement of all of the Doge actions. So that's something we're going to talk about. You know, I don't have a whole lot of time, but I'm going to play this video of Tom Cruise for you. We're going to talk about this more probably on Friday, but I wanted to play it for you because it just popped up for me today. And, you know, people gave Tom Cruise such a hard time over this video. And I know you can save all the stuff about Scientology. I know all about Scientology, and it's not as bad as what people lend it to be. And, you know, there's a lot of mixed bag on that. And we can talk about that anytime you want, possibly on Friday also. But put aside the fact that Tom Cruise is a Scientologist and just listen to what he has to say about the drugs that we give our children. This is an old video, but I think every day we see how right he really was. And people made fun of him. You know, Hollywood, to some degree, blacklisted him from a lot of their projects because of the things he was saying. So just take a listen to this.
Here we are today, where I talk out against drugs and psychiatric abuses of electric shocking people, okay, against their will, of drugging children with them not knowing, the effects of these drugs. Do you know what Adderall is? Do you know Ritalin? Do you know now that Ritalin is a street drug? Do you understand that?
The difference is this was not against her will, though. But this wasn't against Brooke's will.
Matt, I'm asking you a question.
I understand there's abuse of all of these things.
No, you see, here's the problem. You don't know the history of psychiatry. I do. All it does is mask the problem, Matt. And if you understand the history of it, it masks the problem. That's what it does. That's all it does. You're not getting to the reason why. There is no such thing as a chemical imbalance. I'm saying that drugs aren't the answer, that these drugs are very dangerous. They're mind-altering, antipsychotic drugs. And there are ways of doing it without that so that we don't end up in a brave new world.
Yes, there are abuses. And yes, maybe they've gone too far in certain areas. Maybe there are too many kids on Ritalin. Maybe electric shock.
Too many kids on Ritalin, Matt.
I'm just saying, but aren't there examples where it works?
Matt, you don't even, you're glib. You don't even know what Ritalin is. If you start talking about chemical imbalance, you have to evaluate and read the research papers on how they came up with these theories, Matt. Okay? That's what I've done. And you go and you say, where's the medical test? Where's the blood test that says how much Ritalin you're supposed to get?
It's very impressive.
We'll talk about that more on Friday, but something I wanted to throw in about this video is this happened a long time ago. And Tom Cruise really got the bad end of the deal for speaking out about it. And I think a lot of people at the time, they didn't understand what these drugs actually really did to kids. And he obviously did do his research. Now, here we are, 2025, and we see all of these school shootings. And guess what? A big portion of these school shootings, a big portion of mass shootings in general in this country, they go back and look and they see that, gee, these kids have been taking these drugs, right? And back then, everybody looked at Tom Cruise like, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard. That's just not true. And I know, kids were just getting pumped full of Ritalin and all these other psychiatric drugs. They were saying, oh, it's a chemical imbalance. We need to give them more chemicals to offset the balance. And then, I will be the first person to say, I don't know anything about these drugs. I've never taken them. And I don't know what they do to people. But I see what happens. I see it in the news. I read about it and I understand that now we know that a lot of these drugs cause a lot of other psychiatric problems in children. They still are depressed. Sometimes they become more depressed. They become more despondent. They end up acting out in some of these school shootings. They end up, violence against themselves or their families. And I think that there was a lot of that didn't happen that last time that we probably should have taken a little bit more seriously. And I'll tell you, we'll talk about this a little bit more on Friday. And as you guys know, I think I've said this a few times before, but I did bodyguard work or security for Tom Cruise. And my company I did personally myself and, got to talk to him a little bit. And I wouldn't say get to know him necessarily, but got to talk to him. And very friendly guy, very nice guy, not at all what people say that he is. And, met his family. I've still, in communication with one family member. And anyway, long story that is, but he's not this crazy lunatic that people want to say. He actually was right. He was actually right. No one talks about the fact that this guy was completely blacklisted from so many different movie companies, but yet he was right the whole time. He did his research. He knew exactly what he was talking about. So we're going to get back into that a little bit more on Friday. It is time for me to run. Lots of things going on. While we've been talking about, here, I just saw this headline come through and I don't think it's true. We're going to talk on Friday, by the way, also about cancer parasites. We're going to talk about mammograms. I meant to get to that on list this past Friday. Didn't have time. Doge, it says, about to roll out a universal basic income. We'll see. Is that true? Is it not true? I haven't had time to look at it because the headline just popped up. But I'm going to look into that. We'll talk about it tomorrow. I'm Tabitha Hassell with Tabs on Tap. Thank you all for joining me. And please, I don't often ask this because I always usually forget. And, I air the show on my personal Facebook page, on my X page, on YouTube, as well as Telegram. If you have the opportunity, please go out and like and follow the pages. Like and follow the pages. I send out those requests like everybody does, who does a podcast, and no one ever actually likes and follows the page. So please like and follow the page for Facebook, for X. If you like the show, share the show. We're going to start doing some different things and having some guests come on and breaking some things down into segments. I'm going to try to take some time out to do all these things and try to get the word spread out. We got to spread the truth faster than we spread the lies, that's for sure, because they sure spread the lies awfully quick. But thanks everyone for joining me this morning. Look forward to talking to you all tomorrow. I hope you all have a really fantastic day, and we'll see you then.